Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Mind, Your Reality, Your Results. I am so happy to have you here today. We are a weekly show that where I speak with an expert in the matter of mindset, so you can reframe your thinking and get the amazing results that you want. If you don't know me, my name is Leah Fink. I'm the owner and founder of All Thrive. And at All Thrive, we run amazing workshops that focus on helping you raise your self-awareness and also develop the skills that you need to have a truly amazing life. Now, if you are watching live, we would love for you to comment, question. You certainly have an expert here today. You can take advantage of her knowledge. But also feel free, if you're watching this after the fact, please still put those comments and questions in, because we can get back to you and keep going with that conversation. And with that, I am so excited today to be welcoming Dr. Rowena Winkler. Oh my God, a tongue twister. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Leah. I am super excited to be here and to chat with you and talk to folks about perfectionism and mindset.
Amazing. Well, why don't we start then by you sharing a little bit about, your expertise, how you came to the topic, what perfectionism means in your mind.
Sure. So how far back shall we go? I am an immigrant child. I'm Filipino American, born in the United States in Philadelphia. Go Eagles in the United States. And I was raised to perform. I had parents who expected a lot from me and my sister. My parents came to the United States from the Philippines to provide a better life for my sister and I. And so from a very early age, I felt that pressure to do well, especially academically. So for a lot of Asian culture, so this isn't a unique case at all. I feel like a lot of first generation Asian American folks would agree that the quote unquote tiger parenting is real, and we're expected to be lawyers, doctors, all these professions that our parents deem to be very high, like high achieving accolades. And so, with that in mind, I was not interested in the medical profession. My mom wanted me to be a nurse, and I said, no, thank you. But I did strive academically and got my bachelor's, my master's, and my PhD in less than 10 years. And my area of expertise is communication. So I did do some health communication work. So I guess there is a medical tied to it, and I did learn how to communicate effectively. So I guess there's some of that lawyer debating speak, right? 'Cause public speaking and rhetoric, that ties in as well. But I did, I got my PhD from the University of Maryland in College Park. And to get there, I really hustled. I worked my butt off. I wrote my entire dissertation in pretty much 1 year, just doing all the research and with little breaks. And I really had that eye on the prize. And so I got my degree. I had my first tenure track academic position, and a lot of different things happened. My father passed away from cancer. And so that loss really made me reflect deeply on my legacy and what I was doing with my time. I was sick. I was stressed. Talk about mindset. I was not in a good mindset. I was not in a good headspace at that time. And it made me wonder, why did I do all this work? Why did I achieve all of these things? Why did I move toward this beep boop bop perfectionism state to achieve all these things when I wasn't feeling fulfilled and happy? And so I left academia. I moved into the communications and marketing industry. And then what brought us together, Leah, is I launched a coaching business earlier this year to integrate all these experiences and to help other high achieving women who are finding themselves in the same sort of transition place to move forward and break out of that. So in a long-winded
Yeah.
way, that's a little bit about my story.
No, but I think that's really real, and maybe not the exact circumstance, but I suspect a lot of people who listen to this could relate, whether it's, parents who are putting that pressure on them, some internal pressure, some school pressure, sports pressure. It's a fairly shared experience. So what really started to get you out of that? Like what did you find worked, and what would you suggest other people maybe start with their journey?
Yeah, so I what has worked for me is having this having several rituals and practices in place, right? So, as humans, we are creatures of habit, and the research says it takes what 21 days to get a habit really into get something set. And so having a solid morning routine, I have morning affirmations that I use every single day where I tell myself, I am strong, I am worthy of abundance, I am perfectly imperfect, what have you, right? So speaking that out in existence helps, right? Having some
Totally.
sort of movement, so yoga, meditation, really finding those moments of stillness because it's so crucial, right? When I was hustling around and getting all the degrees and doing all the like I barely had moment to myself. And I'm an extrovert as well by nature. So for many years I didn't want to be alone, right? I didn't want to sit with myself in my because it really freaked me out. But I had to learn over the years, right, that I needed that time. I needed that inner stillness. And at the time of this recording, we're still transitioning, depending where you are, out of COVID, which was a long period of time, all of us in lockdown and having to have that stillness within ourselves. So finding those moments of stillness, finding a tribe, a community, folks like you and the work that you do, Leah, and the offerings that you provide to folks that builds community and allows you to feel less alone, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah, well, community is how humans interact. We have a very core need for relationship.
Absolutely.
So is that how you work with people? Is that your starting point when you're doing your coaching, is first kind of raising that awareness of those mindsets that are stopping them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, integrating my former work as an academic and a professor, I developed a model that I use with my clients, and that mindset piece is definitely a part of it, but it's not the only piece of it. I call it the inner muse model. It's MUSE because working with women, it's having my clients tap into their soul purpose, their innate power, the that divine essence that we all have and that we can, if we just chill and find those moments to be fully present, we can, activate that. So the first piece of MUSE is model. So again, having that community, having role models that show you like, hey, you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be doing all the things. You don't need to be winning all the awards to feel fulfilled and happy, and that there's more to life. In my personal experience, there's more to life than all the awards and all the grades, you know? So finding those role models and who is that understand. That is the mindset piece. That is developing the routines. That is determining what are those limiting beliefs that are holding you back from achieving that engaging in experiences such as conversations like this or resources, podcasts, Netflix shows, books, what have you. Just get absorbing all that knowledge and then incorporating what you've learned into S, which is the structure. So as I mentioned, having that a practice that is consistent, that is in alignment with what you need. Another practice that I engage in is gratitude, right? So being able to, as challenging things may seem, being able to step back and say, but you know what? I am truly grateful for XYZ. I do have a good life. I do have a lot that I can offer, and I don't need to resort to perfectionism to achieve all the things that I want to. And then E is the expansion. That's expand. It is raising your vibration to get to that higher level of consciousness of fully okay in our so much more to offer and give. So just in a nutshell, that's what I use. And it's a process, right? There's a lot of steps, but the way that I work with my clients is very individualized, very personalized. I work
Yeah.
with theater performers like me, with moms, with folks that are interested in building businesses, a lot of creatives. So based off of that framework, I then can create action plans for my clients to help them achieve that eventual expansion that we want to get to.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic, Muse.
Yeah,
So
right?
so with that, because when I think about perfectionism as a trait, as a habit, I guess, because I've certainly maybe gone through my own adventures of
I'm not
perfectionism.
surprised. I'm not surprised in the slightest.
um, but when I think about it, I really do think of it as a defense trait, right? It's protecting something. It's protecting image of self. Do you notice that a lot when you work with people? Like, would you have anything to suggest if there's people who are listening who are like, yeah, I think I'm perfectionist maybe, but I'm not willing to let it go. It seems scary. What would you suggest for them?
Oh, yes. I mean, as a recovering perfectionist myself, that totally resonates, Leah, because perfectionism is, you know what? I was just listening to Glennon Doyle's podcast, We Can Do Hard Things, and they talked about this bulletproof vest, right? Like we, as perfectionists, is because we want a semblance of control. We want to be able to feel like, even if it may not be reality, to be able to protect ourselves in this shell, this bulletproof vest of, you know, projecting this perfectionism, because then no experiences, no other humans, nothing else can really tap into that core limiting belief, those innate fears and worries that really, I see perfectionism as a form of self-sabotage. We're really preventing and hindering ourselves from living out our gifts and talents because we're not giving ourselves the space and the willingness to go out there and experiment and to be able to tap in and fully realize what it would be. Because as a perfectionist, experimentation is scary, right? Like we don't want to go
Totally.
out there and try things out and fail, right? Because that shows that, oh no, then we mess something up. But honestly, I believe that incorporating a sense of play, even, right? I'm a theater performer, being able to see the fun and joy of experiencing life as this journey that is not perfect and can go in so many different directions, right? We're not supposed to have this idealized path because everyone's path is completely different. So I love that you brought that up because it's so true. We think that it's a defense or protective gear, a bulletproof vest, but if anything, it prevents us from fully connecting with ourselves and with other people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's the piece about so many defenses is
Yeah.
in one way they do keep us safe. They keep our
Absolutely.
ego or whatever safe, but at the same time, like you said, they're limiting in some other way.
Yeah,
So
it's a great
yeah,
point. I mean, it's the ego, right? The perfectionism that could be a part of the ego that's saying, well, you're not enough as is, so you better do these things in this perfect way
yeah,
so that you can feel you are enough or that you are worthy. But I mean, the purpose of the ego is to keep us safe, but you know we can tell the ego like, no, we're good.
yeah.
we can try something here, it's okay.
Oh, that's so true. So with this, because one of the important pieces that you have your S is strategies, right? The action plan. Uh, all the self-awareness in the world is great, but kind of useless if you don't have a way to apply it in your life.
Yeah.
do you find, I was thinking this might be kind of funny, that perfectionists, when they have that action plan, does it go back to the defensiveness of they don't do it because it's scary, or do they do it really perfectly because they're trying to be perfect about it?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I love that. It's like a catch 22, right?
Yeah.
Of structure. Because it's true. We thrive. I'm recovering. Okay, Rowena. I still, the tendencies do come out, especially when it comes to planning and action and structure and strategy. Uh, you know, we thrive on that because it's all set, it's
Yeah.
plan A, plan B, plan C. It's all laid out there. So goodness, if something happens, then we got our tabbed binder ready
Yeah.
for it. But oh gosh, I love this question. I
Mm.
feel like that it it prevents us from fully living in the moment and living moment to moment, right? Because if you have your tabbed binder with plans A, B, C, and D, you're trying to already foresee or it's always good to have a plan, but then you're so busy thinking about, well, what's going to happen with A, B, C, and D. You're like, oh, I got to do, sometimes we can get too structured where we're like, oh no, I missed my affirmation for today. I'm a horrible person. And you spiral in that way. So there has to be some give. There has to be some flexibility and an agility to it because you're right, because then you're just going to go back to the other extreme and you might miss out on some beautiful organic moments that can come out of the everyday. If you're so busy focused on what's on page 25 of my manual, you might miss something that happens right in front of your face. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like I
Totally.
love that. That's just such a great question.
Well, that's, you spoke to the piece of productivity with that, obviously, right? Is
Yeah.
you think you're being productive by structuring, but you might not actually be following through on the productive that you want.
Right, right.
And one of the questions I was wondering with that, because one of my tools that I play with is some personality typology. And when I think of my, checklist people, there's definitely one strong personality type for that. But I do believe that other types who maybe aren't the checklist people can still have like a lot of perfectionism. Do you meet people who kind of don't want to, like, present perfectionism differently?
Ooh, that's a
Or
wonderful question. Yes, actually, as a creative myself and someone who has worked with actresses, dancers, artists, right?
yeah,
It's a different vibe of perfectionism. Actually, one of my clients was talking about a school project, like the final project, right,
yeah,
for the master's degree, and she's an artist, and it's just not getting done because she's obsessing over it, over the idea, over the concept, over each detail of this project, that it's just not getting done, right? So
yeah.
it can come in the form of procrastination even, right? Because
Yes.
you're such a perfectionist that you just delay things. And I know that I've done that myself with my own business and my own creativity. It's like, oh, I have this book project, but it's quite there. And then how many years go by? Uh, in terms of, for example, like a dancer or a performer, if they're directing or if they're leading something, or even in their own art, if they're stuck so much on the nitty gritty, then it can come off as contrived almost, right? Because
Mm,
that's the
totally.
beauty of art, is like sometimes just feeling into it and having this wild abandon, it just produces some of the most meaningful work.
Yeah. Well, that's coming back to that idea of maybe forced versus
Yeah.
not forced and how you move. And we just had a lovely comment from Benjamin Cooper. Thanks for joining, Benjamin. He's saying, I don't know if you can see the Marina,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's a perfectionist on his terms. Think that people don't know what they want as individuals and adopt paths they feel will lead to the most
Mhm.
success. having a disconnect while listening, because I think the idea of perfectionism is abstracted by what others want versus what we may want as individuals. That is an excellent point. Do you want to start? I would
Yeah.
love to chat with
Thank
that.
you so much, Benjamin, for the comment. It is interesting, and I know for me personally, in my own career path, right, my own trajectory, because I was hitting, I was hitting all the what expected and wanted from me, and it it was this notion of what being quote unquote perfect was in this particular industry, in this particular field. And then once it was just so anticlimactic, right? You like hit those milestones, you hit those goals, you achieve
Yeah.
that perfection or whatever, that achievement, and it doesn't it doesn't feel right. It doesn't sit right. It's not in alignment. And so I think a lot of us do that. To your point, Benjamin, we kind of go off in these paths and trajectories thinking that, oh, this is what I want, so I want. And we come to a stopping point or a wall. And I know that I've done that a couple of times, and back then I felt like, oh no, who am I? Like, I keep changing my mind, like this is
Yeah.
no good, and I felt bad about it. But in reality, reflecting on all of those experiences, it had to happen. I took from it experiences, knowledge that I then implement to what I'm doing today. And so it's, you know, we might have these dead ends or seemingly dead ends, but in the grand scheme of our journey of our lives, I firmly believe that they all were brought to our like to these paths were presented to us for a reason, and whether or not we take it, because even the not taking the path, right?
Yeah.
We have folks that decide not to go to medical school or whatever, or decide not to move to that city, or decide not to marry that partner, what have you, right? We all make these decisions regardless of whether we go with it or not, and whether it's prescribed for us or not. But at the end of the day, I believe that it just brings us closer to us feeling comfortable in our own authentic skin and who we are meant to be, um, here and now. So
Well, if I can bounce off that and
please.
add a thought, I'd love to hear to what Benjamin was saying. I think there is this disconnect sometimes, like, you growing up, of maybe you didn't want to be a doctor, your parents saying perfectionism is being a doctor, or taking on that kind of academic role. And I think as much as we might have our own view of ourselves, I think subconsciously we're much more affected than other people than we think. So when I read your comment, Benjamin, that's really what I was thinking, is like, for a long time on my journey, I thought, well, this is my experience. This is how I am. I just naturally want this. And as I dug through more layers, I realized how deeply I'd taken on just some little pieces that were implied to me, or that
Mm,
I judged based on what other people were saying. And that's where I think there can often be this disconnect, because in my life I'm like, well, these are the things I want, and there can still be this little voice in the back of my mind that was fed and watered and seeded by someone else, but ultimately is still playing into that role for me. And it takes, because what you were saying too, about like you reach those goals and you're never happy. Have you ever seen I think it's called the salmon ladder on like American Ninja Warrior, and it's like a chin up bar. You have to like chin up, so you like do all this work, you pull yourself, you
oh
get over the bar,
yes,
and then you like throw it above you. So
yes,
then the next step has to be even higher, because that's the mindset behind it. That's why
yeah,
that's why I love perfectionism as a mindset. It's not just a thought. It is actually like a way of being that we
oh yeah.
perpetuate our ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's a really great point, Leah, about, we don't exist in a vacuum, that we all have these experiences and there's context to everything. Here's my communication scholar hat, right? That there's
Yeah.
we get messages, we have experiences, we interact with other individuals in different roles, and that all impacts. And it's interesting, right? In your own work, it sounds like you're like, wait, was that all me? Or
Totally.
yeah, yeah, that's a really great point. We are gosh, especially for me as someone, I'm a total empath too, right? So I'm really getting all the feels from every which way, and just being able to have that self-awareness and to unpack that and create energetic boundaries, or even, some just being honest with yourself, and having the tools and resources, whether that is a coach or a therapist or a
Totally.
community, right? Just having that mirror is always helpful.
Yeah. Well, one of those pieces, in general, with our defense mechanisms, it's very hard to notice them from the inside because they're working real good at making sure that won't happen.
Oh
So, yeah,
yeah.
you're right. That mirror, that's someone else external who can share some pieces with you.
Hmm.
So critical. So, just we're kind of getting close to the end. Was there a final thought you wanted to give people, or an encouragement for their journey? Any particular way to start?
Yeah, oh, Benjamin gave a little comment
Yeah.
here. Let's see.
Oh, well, thank you.
Oh, thank you. um, yeah, just here's the thing. And here's what I've discovered in my own journey of contending with perfectionism, and now that I'm working toward moving out of that mindset, as we've discussed. For me, not being perfect caused me to be super open and vulnerable, right? Not being perfect gave me the motivation, the encouragement to put myself out there without, just me unfiltered. And what I found is that having that vulnerability allowed me to more deeply tap into my intuition, and it gave me a greater ability to connect with other people in a very profound way, right? Because if you're perfect, you're not relatable, because it's like not real. It's not real. It's like fake news. So, and the thing about your intuition is that it's not, it's sometimes just a whisper. You really, again, going back to that
Mhm.
meditation
Yeah.
piece, you really have to have that space and that stillness to be able to listen to it. It's not going to come at you like a sledgehammer. Um, but being okay with speaking your truth, and regardless of how it may or may not be perceived, has honestly been a superpower of mine as I've gone on this journey. It's allowed me to connect with folks like you, with people like Benjamin. Thank you for your comments, and the clients that I work with on a day-to-day basis. I don't show up into this world as perfect Rowena. I show up as human, Rowena, wearing my many different hats, and it resonates with people. So it's as scary as it is. I don't know. I feel like the benefit far outweighs the cost of like the challenge of ruminating and being anxious about, oh god, they're gonna, as I said, I'm a theater performer, so my whole life I've always been seen as like this extroverted, like, this like, oh, you're so much. But well, you know what? That's me. So if I'm too much, then go somewhere else. I don't know. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I love that. Encourage people to be vulnerable. I think kind of, to me, that's kind of what it sounds like Benjamin was saying too, about like filtering out all the outside stuff, being with yourself. And I think that's an amazing place to start. So just thank you so much, by the way, for being here today. That
Thank
was absolutely lovely.
you had lovely questions, Leah. I really,
Thank you.
you got me thinking really deeply. I appreciate the this conversation and this dialogue. I think it needs to happen more. We're in such a hustle culture that I think we need to flip the coin a bit.
That is a lovely thought to end on. Um, yeah, once again, thank you so much for being here. We're going to make sure Rowena's contact is in the chat after, or in the comment section after. So if you do feel inspired, want to chat with her about any of this, please feel free to do so. Or like I said, leave some comments or questions yourself and we'll get back to you. And thank you so much for being here today, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.